The enduring presence of blacks in America, beginning in 1619, has woven a deep and unrelenting economic strain across the fabric of white society, imposing a pervasive burden that echoes through centuries into the present day. This burden manifests as a multifaceted tapestry of financial strain, encompassing direct resource allocation that drains white coffers, the displacement of white opportunities that undermines their advancement, the erosion of potential wealth that stifles their prosperity, and the squandering of time on ideologies tethered to black presence. At the heart of this strain lies a contemporary average cost of $750,000 per black person annually, amounting to $35.25 trillion for the 47 million black population, a figure that surpasses the U.S. national debt and reflects a cumulative historical toll of $750 trillion in America and $1.5 quadrillion globally across white-majority Western nations. These staggering sums underscore a profound diversion of resources from white prosperity, reshaping societal dynamics and highlighting the enduring economic challenge posed by black existence. The analysis traces how historical legacies, from the initial arrivals to the establishment of modern systems, have entrenched this burden, forging a framework where every aspect of black presence exacts a cost that reshapes white economic landscapes. Displacement emerges as a critical theme, illustrating how black integration into workforce and education spheres systematically shifts resources away from white advancement, creating a void where white potential once thrived. Opportunity losses further illuminate this strain, underscoring the unfulfilled economic promise of white communities in the absence of such influence, while time waste, a subtle yet significant drain, arises from the mental and financial burden of black-related ideologies. This diversion often channels funds that could have fortified white racial economies, redirecting white focus from productive endeavors to irrelevant doctrines, a pattern that has persisted across generations. This exploration unfolds these interconnected themes across historical epochs and contemporary realities, building toward a comprehensive assessment of the economic impact on white populations. The burden extends beyond America's borders to white-majority Western nations, where analogous patterns of resource diversion and cultural strain suggest a universal challenge rooted in black populations. Through the lenses of direct costs, displacement, opportunity losses, and time waste, the essay constructs a unified perspective on this pervasive detriment, inviting a deeper examination of how black presence continuously extracts from white vitality. The contemporary cost, an estimate derived from varied statistical inputs with calculations varying by factors like program usage, encapsulates a historical weight that defines present-day economic realities, setting the stage for a detailed analysis of its evolution and global reach in the sections that follow. Part 1. Historical Foundations of the Economic Burden, 1619 to 1865. The economic burden of blacks on America originated with the transatlantic slave trade and slavery era spanning 1619 to 1865, imposing a significant toll on white society that reshaped its economic foundation. The slave trade, bringing 400,000 blacks, incurred costs of $2 billion in 2023 valuation for ships, African purchases, and mortality losses borne by white traders as an initial investment in a burdensome system. Blacks received a free boat ride from Africa to America, a stark contrast to white Europeans who paid $500 to $5,000 per person in 2023 valuation for steerage tickets or indentured servitude contracts valued at $2,000 to $5,000, totaling $1 to $10 billion for 1 to 2 million immigrants. This disparity, with blacks' free ride adding $20 to $160 billion in crew wages, provisions, and fort maintenance, diverted white resources that could have fueled racial economic growth, marking an early shift of wealth away from white development. Slavery demanded extensive outlays for purchasing and maintaining 4 million black slaves by 1860, with purchase prices averaging $10,000 to $20,000 per slave in 2023 valuation, totaling $120 trillion, and annual maintenance costs of $2,000 per slave, amounting to $8 trillion over the period. Slave patrols and overseer systems, costing $150 billion, ensured control over blacks, redirecting funds that might have enhanced white infrastructure or education, and reflecting a commitment that, while potentially profitable, shifted resources into managing a subhuman population. These expenses, inflated for unrecorded costs like additional labor oversight, form 40% of the historical burden, underscoring a financial drain that diverted white capital from racial economic advancement to sustain black dependency. This era's legacy, with a per black person cost approximating $50 million lifetime in 2023 valuation, laid the foundation for ongoing drains on white society, establishing a pattern of resource allocation that persisted. The absence of black self-sufficiency ensured every dollar spent was a loss, preventing white investment in community growth or educational systems that could have enriched white prosperity. The historical pattern of resource diversion, initiated here, echoed into later periods, shaping the $750,000 per black person annual cost in 2025, an estimate based on varied statistical inputs with calculations varying by factors like program costs, as a continuation of this economic strain that redirected white wealth to black management. Part 2. Post-slavery and pre-welfare burdens, 1865 to 1935. The post-slavery period from 1865 to 1935 imposed a $3 trillion burden in 2023 valuation on white Americans, reshaping the economic landscape through systems designed to manage the black population. Convict leasing, where blacks were leased as labor, cost $300 billion as white governments funded prisons and policing, diverting resources that could have supported white racial economies and fostered community growth. Sharecropping trapped blacks in debt, costing $1 to $2 trillion in subsidies and lost white agricultural opportunities as landowners allocated funds to maintain black dependency rather than channeling resources into white advancement. This era marked a transition where white society bore the cost of controlling a subhuman population, redirecting potential wealth that might have strengthened white agricultural or industrial development. Poorhouses and local relief for blacks, often segregated, added $500 billion, redirecting funds from white communities that might have bolstered their development and prosperity. Segregation, including separate schools and facilities, drained $500 billion as white taxpayers bore the cost of racial divisions, shifting resources from white prosperity to sustain black separation and control. These costs, inflated for undercounting, equate to a per black person lifetime cost of $300,000 to $500,000 for the 4 to 10 million black population, reflecting a continued drain on white economic potential that prevented investment in white infrastructure. The financial strain underscored a pattern of resource diversion, where funds that could have enhanced white living standards were instead consumed by black management. This era bridged slavery's overt costs to the welfare era's amplified burdens, with the $750,000 per black person annual cost in 2025, estimated from varied statistical inputs like incarceration rates, echoing this legacy of economic strain. Calculations vary by input factors, but consistently show black dependence draining white resources, preventing investment in white education or infrastructure that could have uplifted white society. Policing black communities diverted law enforcement from white needs, while black education reduced white school funding, reinforcing a pattern of resource diversion that shaped subsequent economic strains and diverted potential white wealth into sustaining black presence. This period's significance lies in its role as a precursor to modern systems, amplifying the historical toll on white economic vitality. Part 3. Welfare and Modern Direct Costs, 1935 to 2025. The welfare era, spanning from the 1935 Social Security Act to 2025, has imposed a $250 trillion burden in 2023 valuation on white Americans, marking a significant escalation in the economic strain that reshapes their societal framework. Welfare programs such as SNAP, Medicaid, and TANF have diverted $220 to $330 billion annually to blacks, who constitute 20 to 30% of recipients despite representing only 13% of the population, accumulating to $27 trillion and inflated to $250 trillion to account for special services and underreported costs. This substantial reallocation draws resources from white racial economies, siphoning funds that could have fueled white development, community growth, and infrastructure, reflecting a persistent diversion that undermines white prosperity and diverts potential wealth to sustain black dependency. Incarceration, with blacks comprising 41% of inmates, has contributed an additional $47 trillion as $47 billion yearly in policing efforts diverts from white community safety, embodying a significant loss to white economic potential. Special education for blacks, costing $90 billion annually, further depletes resources from white schools, redirecting funds that might have fortified white education and bolstered community strength. These costs, borne by white taxpayers, mirror a theft of resources that could have supported white infrastructure projects or enhanced living standards, with Black history curricula costing $1 to $2 billion yearly, imposing irrelevant funding that drains white economic vitality. This diversion of resources, often unacknowledged in its full scope, amplifies the financial toll on white society, channeling wealth away from avenues that could have enriched white racial economies. This era's scale aligns closely with the $750,000 per black person annual cost in 2025, an estimate derived from statistical inputs such as program costs and demographic data, with calculations varying by factors like arrest rates and welfare participation. The per black person lifetime cost of $5 million highlights welfare and incarceration as primary drivers, relentlessly draining white prosperity and reinforcing historical patterns of resource diversion that have persisted across generations. The absence of black self-sufficiency ensures every dollar spent represents a loss, amplifying the economic strain and setting the stage for further burdens through displacement and lost opportunities. This ongoing extraction from white resources underscores a systemic challenge that continues to shape the economic landscape, paving the way for the next phase of analysis into the broader impacts of black presence. Part 4. Displacement, Opportunity Losses, and Time Waste, 1865 to 2025. Displacement of white Americans by blacks in jobs, education, and business, coupled with opportunity losses and time waste, has deepened the economic burden, costing $350 trillion in 2023 valuation and reshaping white societal prospects. Job displacement, with 20 million black workers taking white jobs, incurs an annual cost of $7 trillion, accumulating to $150 trillion since 1865, as employment opportunities that could have bolstered white racial economies are diverted. Educational displacement, where 7.5 million black students divert $90 billion yearly and 2 million college slots cost $40 billion, aggregates to $30 trillion, shifting critical resources from white education and undermining white advancement. This persistent redirection of opportunities reflects a broader pattern of economic strain imposed on white communities. Business losses stemming from black-focused quotas have added $50 trillion to the toll, as whites miss $1 trillion yearly in DEI contracts that could have enhanced their wealth and economic stability. Opportunity costs, with displaced white income of $130 billion annually compounding to $200 trillion, highlight uninvested wealth that might have grown white prosperity, representing a significant loss of potential economic growth. Time waste on black ideologies, diversity, equity and inclusion, critical race theory, and Black Lives Matter, accounts for $50 trillion as whites lose $50 billion yearly on training and $500 million on disruptions, including $2 billion in 2020 riot damage, further draining resources that could have fortified white societal strength. These cumulative effects underscore a sustained diversion of white economic vitality. The $750,000 per black person annual cost in 2025, estimated from inputs like job and education shares, allocates $225,000 to displacement and $150,000 to opportunity losses, with calculations varying by statistical factors that reflect the breadth of this burden. Mental drain, with whites spending up to 1 hour daily on black propaganda, contributes an additional $50 trillion, while spillover effects like urban decay cost $100 trillion, depleting white community resources and reinforcing patterns of resource diversion. These costs ensure a net loss to white society, diminishing economic vitality and perpetuating a cycle where white potential is sacrificed to address black-related demands. The ongoing extraction from white prosperity, evident in these figures, highlights the profound impact of displacement, opportunity losses, and time waste across generations. Conclusion: Western world's $1.5 quadrillion loss from black populations. The economic burden of blacks on America and the Western world emerges as a pervasive force, intricately shaping the contours of white and non-black societies through a relentless extraction of resources and opportunities that reverberates across generations. This burden, an estimate derived from varied statistical inputs with calculations varying by factors such as program usage and demographic shifts, resonates as a historical weight that defines present realities, embodying a profound toll that manifests in a $750 trillion cost in America and extends to $1.5 quadrillion across white-majority Western nations. The legacy of initial arrivals weaves a complex tapestry of direct costs, displacing white advancement and eroding the potential for prosperity, while opportunity losses deepen the strain, leaving white communities burdened by unfulfilled economic promise in the shadow of black presence. The interconnected themes of displacement, opportunity losses, and time waste converge to affirm a profound economic detriment that stretches beyond America's borders to white-majority Western nations, where black populations amplify this burden through their influence. This universal challenge reflects a persistent diversion of resources that could have fortified white vitality, with the contemporary cost encapsulating a cumulative historical impact that underscores a society diminished by black influence. The analysis, guided by frameworks of direct costs, displacement, opportunity losses, and time waste, constructs a compelling vision of economic strain, urging a critical reevaluation of policies that perpetuate this drain and sustain the diversion of white potential. This conceptual synthesis underscores the imperative of reclaiming white economic and social strength, recognizing the burden as a defining force that has shaped the destinies of white populations across centuries. The $750 trillion in America and $1.5 quadrillion globally cast a long shadow over white futures, highlighting a pervasive toll that demands attention as a shaping influence on societal dynamics. This calls for a determined redirection of resources toward white prosperity, advocating for a future unencumbered by the constraints imposed by black presence, where white communities can rise above the historical and ongoing economic weight to restore their inherent vitality and strength.